Well, if you've followed along until this part, just listening to me ramble about things that I think about, and you've found it to be something other than just somebody rambling, I would really appreciate it if you left in the comments some personal insight you've had from my rambling. This is a new type of expression for me, storytelling, and I hope to get a lot better at it. In these videos, I'm just kind of throwing together to prove to myself that I can before I get really intentional about what it is that I'm trying to share. And one of the things that's already been reflected back to me is that it already seems intentional. And to me, the part that you're seeing and hearing is me shooting from the hip. But the things that I'm thinking about and figuring out how to share in a way that it's for more than just me. There's been a lot of intention over a lot of time, a lifetime, to figure out how to communicate my internal world. So if you could like and subscribe or share with somebody who might find this useful or just like to see the process of a beautiful piece of furniture getting built, it all helps and will go a long way. So I really appreciate you. And asking for a call to action like that is not natural to me. So moving on. This last part of this video, I really want to talk about what this piece of furniture has symbolized to me. And it's a lot of firsts. This is my first gaming table that I ever built, inspired by the Wormwood gaming table. This gaming table was the first time a complete stranger from the internet, who I felt saw my inherent value inside of the passion of woodworking, that wanted me to build something for them. They knew what they wanted, but they left the details and how it came together completely up to me. It was the first time I'd ever quoted something around the ballpark of a 5-figure project that I didn't go to school for. And it felt pretty wild to me to be able to do that for somebody. It was the first time I didn't feel that budget was an issue or had pressure from the customer side. I felt, after talking about what my intention with the build was with this person, that they trusted me. That they trusted me to deliver, and were going to be more than happy with whatever I delivered. And that felt really nice. I want to stress this point because I had been in an industry for about 7 years that it had been reflected back to me that I was an expert in that industry or whatever was trying to be accomplished. And I had never felt the level of trust that I felt here in getting ready to build this table. And I can't even put into words how that affected me. The magnitude of depth that transformed my internal journey into is profound. And I'm struggling getting this out. It caused me to consider something seriously that I had intended to consider seriously but couldn't because of belief systems that I had been carrying around work and the environments that I had been a part of that talked about working hard and talked about values. And even if you were really good at deciding from those values, it was never enough. It was never rewarded. And this was the first time in a making a living context that somebody trusted me so much just to go about my process the way that I wanted to, and that would be good enough. It caused a lot of questions in my life. It caused me to imagine a life that I didn't have to prove my value, that my value was implied, in that people trusted me just to be the person that I was, and that would be enough. And I started imagining what that meant for career, what that meant for who I labeled as my family, what that meant for people I kept close or would trust with my vulnerable thoughts and feelings. It helped me dream bigger for myself. And over time, I realized the ways that I acted in the external world almost always consisted of options that had been provided or things that I had been told I should do based on my circumstances. And I was very skilled and good at choosing the best of what was the most in alignment with my integrity from what was available. But the thing I had not really ever been doing, I couldn't think of a time where I did things the way that I would come up with if I had a blank slate. And I realized it's because I never had the safe space to do that. And I had to ask myself why that was, or why that felt so true. And I think to some degree, the answer to that question will always be evolving and changing. I'll give you today's answer, but mind you, this is well over a year since the building of this table and asking myself these questions repeatedly. What I've come to see that I am a highly emotional being, and I'm very sensitive, and I've always been heart forward, but trying to make it look as if I'm logic or mind or brain forward, because that's more acceptable. And so one of my greatest strengths and my biggest weakness is this adaptive masochism, especially around when it comes to expressing emotions, which I feel like, and it's funny that I say I feel like emotion is 90% of who I am. And I grew up in environments where the people who were the ones that loved me the most couldn't see that 90% of me as being as true as something like 2 + 2 = 4. And so I learned to focus on the 10% of me and worked on mastering that to a degree where the people in my life who said they loved me and wanted to support me through no matter what would find that I accomplished something worth taking an honest look and accepting the other 90% of me. And I internalized that over time that I was never going to get there. And so I too stopped trying to express myself from an emotional standpoint because that only meant more immediate, direct pain and suffering. And so what does this have to do with the table? Well, as I said, it's the first time that doing my own thing from a blank slate was implicitly trusted, and it was something to do with what I had already put out there on social media, where the customer saw what I was about, saw what I was up to, even though I wasn't necessarily, in my opinion, expressing myself from the 90%, the emotional side of who I am. They saw enough of me to trust me implicitly and want my version of expression. And then I had to rewrite that internalized belief inside of myself that thought I was never going to be seen emotionally. And now I have the freedom to bring that to the front in ways I didn't believe I'd get to experience until the world emotionally matured. But because of this project and the aftermath of this project, which was a bunch of outstanding compliments around the work that I did, many compliments touching on an emotional side of things that I didn't know I was expressing. So not only did that send me down a new path of introspection on how do I accept these compliments that I'm having trouble accepting? But also, how do I see the truth in that my emotions come through? The 90% of me comes through without me trying. What would happen if I did try? And now I'm dreaming even bigger. And I don't know where I'm going with this story, but I'm overwhelmed with the need to share. And that's a good kind of overwhelm, not the overwhelm that I'm used to. The overwhelm I'm used to is show less of who you are so that you might get to see another day. Because if you show too much of who you are, you'll realize how much of who you are isn't really allowed. And I internalized that at a young age, that the self is not to be trusted. And I think that's what this table symbolizes to me, is that I can trust myself. I can trust that the things that I'm interested, the things that I'm curious about, the things that cause the type of introspection that keeps me engaged is the path towards uplifting myself and those around me. And to me, that's the path to the most freedom that I've ever envisioned for myself. And so now, in December of 2025, looking back, I delivered this table in March of 2023. I built one more large gaming table in between then and now, and that will be the next YouTube video series that comes out. But as I'm reflecting on this table, it symbolizes an influx of an incredible amount of positivity from the external and a seed that's grown massively in the last 2 years internally, though that internal growth has yet to show itself externally. And this video series, my first big project since the next table that you'll see. In that time, I've lost a shop, I've been divorced, and I live with my parents. And that's been an incredibly difficult journey in its own right. And to the external, or to the people that see me on a regular basis, I know it looks like I've done nothing in that time. But really what I've been doing is rewriting my entire life because of what this project opened up for me. It opened up a new way for me to see myself and see that other people also see me that way. People who value authenticity more than what they can get from somebody who's authentic. And that's a huge, huge monumental shift in the way that I evaluate my life. I now confidently express the emotional side of myself as a filter to determine which energy exchanges are a good fit, rather than how I used to passively choose from what the best of what's available is. That was a waiting game. That was passive. Now, actively, I express who I am, and the people who balk are not on the path for me. That doesn't mean that I won't spend time in an energy exchange to get to know who they are, but I do know that I don't expend the kind of energy where I expect reciprocity. And that makes a huge difference in how I navigate through existence. And I'm much more confident. And I have a lot more hope. And I don't mean hope for my business or what I'm trying to do here or anything personally. I actually mean I have a lot more hope for humanity being able to accept emotions as a signal that's as important in retrieving data as the main 5 senses of what external reality is, and using that to inform our internal one. I think it's really important that we face ourselves internally and see ourselves accurately. because that's where a sense of inner peace and the building blocks for connection really reside. If this video has made you thoughtful or helped you reach new insight about yourself and you're brave enough to share it in the comments, again, I'd really appreciate that. For the rest of this video, I'm gonna turn up the music and just let you watch as I put some finish on the table and you get to see it in its glory at the end. But before that, I've been hesitant to call out the customer by name, but I'm gonna take the risk because I really want to thank you, Rachel. This project has been a huge gift in my life, and through it I've learned so much about myself and learned so much about the world in which I was existing and how I had somewhat manufactured a world of misery. And I just want to thank you for seeing whatever you saw in me that allowed you to take at least the financial or monetary risk of believing in me to be able to build something that I know you're going to appreciate for a really long time, and I know you already have. And it brings people together, and that's just so special to me. But this project is so much more than that. It has put me more into alignment with myself, and there's nothing I can do to thank you enough for that. So just thank you, Rachel. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure delivering this and seeing the smiles on your faces and getting to see your dogs do a plethora of tricks. More tricks than I think any other pets I've ever seen, and they were happy doing it. I hope that as you watch this video, maybe I feel a little less of a stranger, and that would make me very happy too. Be well.